everyone, welcome back to Mrs. Wizard's Way. And today's video, we're going to talk about 3 things you really never should say to kids. Now, I'm not talking the obvious ones, but 3 things that really do some serious damage. Let's get started. Now, I'm not talking about the I hate you, I wish you were never born, you're the worst thing on the planet. Okay, we never say those to kids, okay? We get that. But these are some things that you never want to say, and I've learned this from teaching and from being a parent as well, and me growing up. So let me get started. I've got 3, and the first one I'm going to start with is kind of, yeah, you kind of get it. The third one, you're going to be like, I never thought of that. But let's go ahead and start with the first one I have, and that's just basic insults, like just some simple name calling and belittling. You know, you think, oh, it's nothing of it. You don't always think, oh, hey, is that going to make a lasting effect? And it really does. When I was little, I had a babysitter, and she was doing something at the sink, cleaning something. And I was little. I was maybe 5 or 6. I don't remember how old I was. But obviously, this wasn't yesterday because I'm not 7 or 8. But she asked me, she's like, hey, in a little bit, I'm going to ask you to pour some into the sink. It was bleach. It was a gallon jug of bleach. And I think it seemed full. I was little. I mean, my little muscles were, flexing. And I remember I was trying to pick it up, and I'm trying to, pour it into the kitchen sink. And it was so high I couldn't, and so I had to adjust it, and I spilled some. Yeah, and I understand she was angry. I really understand that. But she, called me, oh, you stupid child. How could you mess this up? And I still remember this to this day. And the sad thing is that, she was a very good Christian woman, but she just didn't get the soft sides of things. She might have had a good relationship with God, but she didn't have it with people. She never really was a nice person. And since I've, met some of her other relatives now that I'm an adult, they're like, yeah, she just has always been kind of mean and bitter. And maybe that spilled off into the mind of a child, but think for a second, have you ever had something like that happen to you, maybe as a parent or a babysitter or a teacher, and maybe they said it out of frustration, but do you remember what they said? Now, can you remember the good things that they have said? Do you remember them saying something good in praise? And it's funny how our brain works, and we remember the negative, but we don't always remember the positive. And I don't really remember her saying anything very positive. She was always kind of grouchy. So that's the first one I have. So insults, even if they're said in frustration and anger, they can do some serious damage to little kids or adults as we grow up. The second one I have is comparing siblings. Now, I have a little sister, and the wizard has a little brother. And so, there's some of that natural comparison. It just kind of happens. You and your sibling, if you have one, you probably have different strengths and different weaknesses. My kiddos have different strengths and different weaknesses. My oldest doesn't care and mind that her little sister is really good at baking. Actually, she kind of likes it because her little sister makes some really good stuff, and big sis gets to eat it. And we don't make fun of big sis because she's not a cook. She has other strengths. But it gets bad when there's a rivalry. And as a teacher, I saw this. I had 2 students, and they weren't terribly far apart in age. They're maybe 2 years apart, maybe 3. So they were definitely in the same building at the same time, at least in the same high school. I don't know what happened previous to this. So they were in the same space. They saw each other in the hallways. They shared the same teachers. Yeah. I'm going to call them Mark and Matt. And obviously not real names. But Mark was very outgoing, the older one. So he blazed his way through, didn't have much to think about, didn't have to follow after anybody, but he was really good at all sorts of stuff, and teachers were counting on him, and he was doing a great job, and he didn't think much of it. Except for Matt. Matt was behind him. And Matt was trying to figure out, who he was. He was a little bit quieter. I don't know if there's any other siblings, so it might have been just the oldest and the youngest situation. But he was very resentful of his brothers, his easygoing attitude, how teachers and people just loved him. And heaven forbid you accidentally called Matt Mark. He would be very upset, very frustrated. And sometimes it just happens. I mean, Think about how many times have you said the wrong names to your pets even. I mean, there's lots of times we're all called Daisy Honey and Honey Daisy, let alone my own children. It happens. It's just sometimes our brains just go click and say the wrong thing. And it's not intentional, but for this kiddo, he had a lot of frustration with that older brother. Now, I just saw him a couple of weeks ago. I was out to lunch with some of my old coworkers, and this younger one, Matt, came in, and we're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And he seemed a little happier. And so he wasn't living under that constant shadow of that big brother. So it's one of those things to watch for, You don't want to have kiddos get too frustrated with you after all. But the third one, this is the one, I've been wanting to make a video on this third one for a really long time. And the third one is making fake promises. And this is the one that you don't even really think about. You don't think, fake promises? What are fake promises? Well, it can happen maybe with a non-custodial spouse, like you've divorced and the other parent doesn't see them very often. They always make promises that they don't keep. It can happen with a family member or even a close friend of the family. I wouldn't say teachers or people you don't see very often, because usually kids can figure that out. But these are when adults say, "Hey, I'm going to take you out for ice cream," or "Hey, we're going to go to the zoo," or "We're going to go bowling or movies or Disneyland or whatever. We're going to do that the next time we're together." And the kid is like, "Yay, we're going to go do this." They're all excited, like, "Yay, we're going to go do this." And that never happens. This happened to my own kiddos with a family member. And the family members would always be like, "Yeah, we're going to go do this, and we're going to do that, we're going to do this." And they didn't. It wasn't that we were far away. It wasn't that it was like we were multiple states away and it could mean massive amounts of travel and coordination. It wasn't that. It was, they just, made the statement, "We're going to go do this." Now, as adults, we do this all the time. How many times have you heard, or maybe even you said, "Hey, hey, great seeing you today, Fred. Let's go get some coffee next time you're in town," or "Hey, let's go ahead and let's get some, go out to dinner, or let's go get some drinks," okay? As an adult, we get that. We know that means, yeah, maybe, okay, I like seeing you, we might want to see each other again, but hey, we don't have anything on our calendar, so, maybe. But kids don't get that. And what really hurt for my kiddos is that the relatives took another family member's kiddos to those events. Yeah. And it wasn't that they were, closer in relation. It wasn't like taking the grandkids and then these are the, second cousin kids. It wasn't like that. They were equal in relation. And that was hurtful for them because they're like, "Oh, I thought they were going to take us." And they didn't. And you're like, "Well, how did they find out?" Well, join social media. You're watching some right now. Yeah, the kiddos would, the one that went could have posted it on Snapchat, put it on their story. Could have put it on, well, our kiddos don't use Facebook, but the adults could have posted its pictures to their Facebook. And then we see it and we're like, "Oh, well," and then I am the one having to explain to my kiddos why the other child went and they didn't. And so that was really hurtful for me, and for the kiddos as well. My kids don't have a good relationship, not a close, it's not a bad relationship, not like they, I hate them, but they definitely just don't trust that family as much. They're like, "Okay, we're happy if we get a Christmas present, maybe a birthday card, but that's about it. That's all they count for." Okay, for that family. And it's really sad because they could have had a good relationship with the family, but because of all these false promises and fake things that they say, "Hey, we're going to go do this, we're going to do that," my kiddos were like, eventually they're like, "Yeah, right, prove it." And there was never any proving. So those are three things that you really shouldn't ever say to kids. It's sad that I'm making a video on this, but this last one has been wearing at me for a really long time, considering my kiddos are now adults. Some of the videos I'm making are so we can learn from each other. Hopefully. I'm not probably the first person to have experienced this kind of a situation. I guarantee I can't. But we have a technology today where maybe we can learn from each other so we don't keep repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. And I would love that to happen because my kiddos got awfully hurt a lot from those fake promises and just some of the other things that, the rivalries and Life's hard enough as it is. Let's not make it any harder. So if you know somebody who's trying to raise some kids and struggling, maybe share this video with them. I'd really appreciate it. Otherwise, I hope you've learned something today. Maybe get you thinking about some things. And hey, feel free to share in the comments if you've had any of those experiences. And obviously, don't use real names. Anyway, it's good talking to you. See you guys. Bye.